Hello everyone and welcome back once again to Regalion Stories. In this video, we'll be doing a compilation of Regalion Stories, so from the first video all the way to the 10th. So with that, let's kick back, get yourself nestled in, maybe get yourself a warm drink or something to eat, or if you're going to sleep then get yourself nice and comfortable, and let's get lost in the world of Regalion. Well, this is an interesting predicament we find ourselves in. To think I went through all that trouble and yet you get dropped right at my feet. Well then, it's time we got this show on the road. I'm curious though, with everything that happened, how do you think this story will end? Do you believe that you are the hero of this story and that you are going to save this world from devastation? Ha! You call yourself a hero, but how many people's lives do you think you destroyed? How many lives were ruined regardless of the person? A so-called hero wouldn't ruin lives in such a way, and you did all this just to end up right here with me. Do you regret all that happened leading to this moment? Do you regret meeting her? Either way, it doesn't matter. You are here now, and once I gather the power of the God-forsaken, your world will be mine. Now I must take my leave. I have a few preparations to make before the fun can begin. Now you ponder on those questions I asked, and think about why you are now my prisoner. The corrupted jailer then left the room in an air of sinister smoke, leaving his prisoner to truly think about everything that happened leading up to this moment. The prisoner looked back on the last couple of months, playing out the events in his head, but not truly giving up hope on the ones he held dear. "Rise and shine, sleepyhead. You've got a day of work ahead of you," sang the cheerful and angelic voice of Celeste. The individual woke up and thought about how being woken up like this can be fun, but after the 50th time, it does start to become a bit redundant. 5 more minutes. The individual groaned while rolling over and slowly drifting back into a state of complete blissful unconsciousness. A dream. An odd one, almost like a premonition, but how? Could it be Celeste's power at work? They were not sure, but for now they decided it best to remain alert and to try to figure out who their jailer was. Ha 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 ha, exactly how it should be. Sleep and sloth are kings, isn't that right, Max? Celeste just doesn't get the power of being immobile. Putrid, the demonic creature that lived in the lantern Max carried with him, exclaimed in a deep and foreboding voice. Every time he spoke it sounded like he was forewarning for something terrifying, but after a while you realise that nothing ever happens, and he mainly only speaks like that to keep up appearances. With the weird dream he had, and the unease he had been feeling over the past few days, Max thought about his companions and how he came to meet them. Celeste is an angel, and no, not figuratively, but a literal angel, from heaven, complete with wings, a halo, and radiant lights every time she enters a room. However, she's not completely physical anymore. See, Celeste came to their world involuntarily, mainly because she was summoned there by a group of cultists. Max put them down to being horny girls and guys who learnt a few tricks and decided that they could now summon celestial beings whenever they wanted. Well, it almost worked. See, while these cultists knew the basics of summoning, they had only learnt a few tricks, and summoning's a lot more difficult than a few tricks. They summoned Celeste when they learnt of her inconceivable beauty. Without knowing enough about summoning, they tried their luck, and it went as well as a botched nose job. Celeste's body and soul were torn apart by the summoning process, meaning all they summoned was a lifeless husk of an angelic form. The beauty was still there, but she was kind of devoid of something major, life, and as such the cultists tried to fix their mistake, but to no avail. Call it fate, destiny, or whatever, but luckily Max was on a mission nearby and sensed the presence of a powerful being appearing from almost nowhere. He rushed over and found these cultists trying to catch Celeste's soul. They had trapped her in the warehouse where the summoning was conducted, but Celeste was not wanting to go easily. She was freaking out, and for good reason. How would you feel if one minute you were chilling in heaven, and the next you were a disembodied soul with your lifeless husk of a body on the floor? Due to the botched summoning, Celeste was unable to reunite with her body. All she could do was fend off the cultists with holy power. Max was perched on a beam high above the chaos. He had snuck in through an open window and managed to grapple his way up. While it was dark, he could still make out the shapes and sounds which helped to fill out the gaps. He watched and listened, trying not to laugh as the weirdest sequence of cat and mouse played out. Eventually he composed himself, and grappled down further into the warehouse before doing a dramatic drop into the middle of the scuffle, much to the shock of the cultists. "Well, what's going on here?" Before he even had time to finish his sentence, he was blasted with the combined force of holy power and cultist power and sent flying back. "Who was that?" one of the cultists uttered in surprise. It doesn't matter. We need to catch her and get her back into her body," said another cultist who had already turned her attention away from Max and back onto Celeste. Now Max was pissed. You tried to help someone and you get hit in the face with holy power, he thought to himself. He was not happy. He got up and darted forward. The cultists only had a small amount of time to notice him before he gut punched each of them. They all fell back unconscious. They weren't exactly the most physically fit individuals, and he worried that he may have overdone it. Celeste then started to calm down and she floated over to him. She thanked him for the help that he gave her, and then asked him if he could help her one more time. He asked her what it was, and she told him that she wanted to tether her soul to his, seeing as how she couldn't get herself back into her own body. Okay, he thought. He had heard about these types of things before, but he wondered how tethering a soul to a normal body would work. She explained that tethering a soul was basically like a simulation, where her soul becomes bound to his, meaning that they would share a body, but she would have control over her own soul, and he would have control over himself. He thought about it. It sounded crazy, but she looked at him with the most innocent of faces, making puppy dog eyes with a quivering lip, and he just couldn't say no. She explained that if they became bound, then she would be protected from the cultists if he remained alive, and in exchange, she would supply him with her power and help him whenever possible. They became bound, and as soon as she tethered to him, her body dematerialized, and he felt her power flowing through him. She explained that her body entered a stasis form while it recovered, entering a place in between heaven and earth. After this ordeal, the two of them became inseparable, no pun intended, and, keeping to her words, Celeste helped whenever possible. Celeste could materialize herself because her body was technically still attached to their dimension, but not completely. Because of that, she could only keep her physical form for a short time. The longest he'd seen her go was a few hours, but after that she was asleep for the rest of the day. She materializes herself in short bursts as opposed to staying materialized for long periods of time. Butrid is the other being that, for want of a better word, helps Max in his usual dealings as a Reaper. However, most of the time, Butrid is a sarcastic, lazy, gluttonous creature that decides when he wants to work. But then again, you wouldn't expect anything less from a being that draws traits from each of the 7 deadly sins. Anyway, there is not much to explain about Butrid, other than he used to have a full-on physical form, and Max found him attacking a village near Nobiseg, so Max decided to head out to the village and stop him. Butrid ended up calling Max a pipsqueak, and he laughed at the thought of Max stepping up to him. Max is not the tallest guy around, but he is still 5'6", and Butrid was standing at 10 feet tall, so yeah, he had the size advantage by a mile. But that old saying, do not judge a book by its cover, well, Butrid never got the memo, as he decided that it would be fun to attack him anyway. The fight lasted a minute, with Max dodging his attack, and then using his sword he was able to slice Butrid in two. Luckily for him, an old resident of the village had given Max a lantern that was able to trap demons rather than kill them. It allowed the user to draw on that demon power, but it was dangerous to use because trying to control a demon's power is highly inadvisable. So when Max split him in half, the lantern responded and drew him in, trapping Butrid's power inside the lantern. At first, Butrid was annoyed, but after a while, they became friends, or as close to friends as you can be, with a being that corrupts and eats people for a living. It seems that Butrid and Max have a sort of mutual respect, though Butrid would tell you otherwise. So, that's the backstory of Max's little team, and to further explain what a demon is a creature from another world that came through a rift in time and space that was opened a long time ago and arrived in Max's world. They survive by taking over and corrupting the minds of living beings, turning them violent, lustful, greedy, etc. Then once the individual is fully corrupted, they devour the soul of the individual. A demon corrupting their prey could be a way of garnishing a soul, because there is nothing worse than flavourless soul food. Anyway, let's get back into the story. Now that the introductions are done, let's take a closer look at the stories that intertwine these characters, and the events that led to the end of days. So Celeste had made quite the spread that morning. For whatever reason, she had decided that she wanted to cook a breakfast fit for a king. That was enough to get Max out of bed. He rushed over to the living room, lunged at his chair, and just allowed his mouth to water with the prospect of eating a delectable breakfast. There was everything a grown boy could want. Crispy bacon, scrambled eggs, cooked to fluffy perfection, delectably soft pancakes smothered in warm maple syrup, and truly divine sausages that you just couldn't stop eating. The smell was extraordinary. It smelled like he had died and gone to heaven, his nose being tickled and enticed every time he took a breath. He was so excited that he needed to eat. He got ready to dive in, only for Celeste to move the food away, saying, you know the rules. Before every meal, we must. She prompted him to finish the sentence, which got him thinking of one of the only downsides of having a girl that is a literal angel with you, is that you can't do anything without praying first. Oh, and for those wondering how heaven and hell are so prevalent in Max's world, it is because heaven and hell are interdimensional. However, they are perceived in different ways depending on which dimension you are in, meaning that the heaven and hell that the people of Max's world would perceive would be different to the one that you would perceive in your dimension. Pray. Yeah, I got it. But can we at least finish before the food gets cold this time? Max mumbled while putting his hands together for prayer. While he was never completely religious, he was not against it either, as he had two obvious reasons to believe in religion. But that does not mean that he needs to be happy when it gets in the way of him and his food. A rule he had always believed in is to never get in the way of a man and his food. Unless it's Celeste stopping you, then you just gotta do what she says. Anyway, they prayed, and once they were done, he could feel his belly calling to him, asking why he was just staring at the food, telling him to get to eating, and that's exactly what he did. Max remembered it being one of the best meals he'd ever had. If he could regurgitate it all and then eat it again, he would, without shame. To describe how good it was in writing is impossible. Just trust that after eating that breakfast, no other food would taste the same, because nothing would ever come close to how flavoursome that breakfast was. Once he had finished eating, he got cleaned up, dressed, and headed off to the university. He arrived at the library, found a desk, sat down, got his energy drink and his books, and sat there for about 5 minutes staring at his study essentials. He sat there lost in thought on the life choices he made to arrive at the point where he was sitting at a library, resenting life and about to study. And that was when he met her. The girl that would change everything. The girl that kick-started this whole thing and the reason why he failed. This is no love story. There is no happy or sad ending, just bittersweet and grey. And ultimately, Max did not make the inevitable choice to sacrifice himself for her, but rather for the greater good.
Hey, is anyone sitting here? She asked while already getting her stuff out and taking a seat for herself. Max looked her up and down, and he was surprised. Girls don't usually come and talk to him so freely. Not because there's anything wrong with him, but because he's usually content doing his own thing. But here she was, a girl that he could only describe as being one of the most attractive punk rockers he'd ever seen. Her hair, or what hair he could discern, was a deep shade of crimson red, which came down the left side of her face. The right side was completely shaved, yet on her it worked so well. She was completely tattooed out, from what he could see, and he had to hazard a guess that from the neck down she was full of tattoos. He had a full back tattoo himself, a royal design, complete with a crown, an angel wing and a devil wing, and swords finishing off the piece. It was a physical memory of a past life. While Max never concerned himself too much about whether people had tattoos or not, he could still appreciate a good design. Her nose was pierced with a ring that those pigs would wear, like a circle through the inside of her nose. He always thought that they looked painful, but people have them, so maybe they're not that bad. Her right eyebrow was also pierced, and when she spoke to him, he could see that her tongue was pierced as well. He had been told by a friend something about pierced tongues, but he thought that might not be the best way to start a conversation with this girl. Finally, her clothes consisted of the usual. She had a black leather jacket, a white tee with a picture of some band, and shorts with black tights. He thought were gothic lace. She had a blue baseball cap on, so he could not see the whole of her head, and she had high black boots. She was sucking a lollipop the whole time, and he just sat there thinking, damn, this girl looks like she came off the cover of some advert for edgy clothes. Are you okay? You've been staring at me for the past 10 minutes. Max heard her say, and he immediately snapped out of his trance. Damn, was he staring at her the whole time while describing her appearance in his head? Yet here he thought that time stopped when people did that. Yeah, I'm fine. Sorry about that. I was just lost in thought, he managed to utter. Okay, well that's a bit weird, but you're lucky that I'm a girl who knows how to ignore things like that, and I also need to talk to you about something, she said while taking the stick of the finished lollipop out of her mouth and getting another one from her bag. She held out the lollipop as some sort of peace offering. Max took the lollipop, thinking that he did not want to make himself seem any weirder than he already did. So, what did you want to talk to me about? Thanks for the lollipop, by the way, he asked her while trying to maintain eye contact. Shouldn't we get each other's names first? Mine's Bree, by the way. She held out her hand, expecting a handshake. Max, he reached out and shook her hand. Cool. Alright, so I wanted to ask you about this whole reaping thing, she said with the utmost sincerity, as if she did not just say something that only a few people knew about. What? I don't know what you're talking about, Max managed to utter. He thought about how it felt so weird hearing her say those words. He was confused. Even though she sounded dismissive when she said it, there was an air of determination in her voice. No, I know that you're a Reaper. I wanted to ask you what one is, and what it is you do. And not the usual spiel of, oh, we save the day and stop the scary demons. No, what do you actually do, and what is your true end goal? Oh no, he thought. The Reapers are supposed to be a secretive group. People know about them as Reapers, but you never know the identity of one. They don't have the best of reputations, as people see them as sometimes overly violent to complete a task, and for good reason. There are few Reapers who believe that completing the job comes first, regardless of the casualties. If people know who you are, then it becomes next to impossible to live a normal life. You see, Reapers are highly trained individuals, sort of like a super soldier thing. They are trained to be at peak physical condition, trained in various forms of martial arts, as well as weaponry. Aside from this, they're also trained to have low-key psychic capabilities, being able to block out daemon from trying to corrupt them, as well as go into the minds of others and force the daemon out. Reapers are usually desensitized to violence and would rather do whatever needs to be done to complete a job. A lot of them are not very nice people, but it comes to the profession, he thought. Even still, Max tried to not associate with a lot of them, which makes it even more surprising that she knows who he is. A lot of other Reapers don't even know who he is, so there are only a select few people she could have heard about him from. You want to know about the Reapers? I don't know what a Reaper is, so I wouldn't be able to tell you anything about them. What is a Reaper? Maybe I've heard about them in a story or something, he asked, trying to seem as calm and considerate as possible. Hopefully, if he treated her like she was asking him something preposterous, then she would let it go. But no, this girl is persistent. Yeah, look, there's no point in pretending you don't know what a Reaper is, because I know that you are one. So let's just cut the BS and tell me straight. Well, she's just a ray of sunshine, Max heard Celeste exclaim, which made him chuckle a bit, but he managed to hold in the laughter. Look, I honestly don't know what a Reaper is, so I think you might have the wrong person. He started packing up his stuff into his bag and was getting ready to leave. As he got up, he saw her expression change. Wait, she exclaimed as she pulled out an amulet from her bag. I don't know much about what this is, but I know you know something, so please just help me. I'm sorry if I was a little rude. This girl was serious. The amulet that she had was not something to be messed with. How did someone like her get such an artifact? Fine, he thought. He guessed it couldn't hurt to help her. At least he'll have a chance to examine the amulet, and maybe find out where she got it from. Okay, I'll help you, but we can't talk here, Max said, and as he did, he saw her start to pull all of her stuff into her bag. That sounds foreboding and cliche. This girl, she honestly did not know what kind of worms she opened by not only asking about the Reapers, but also by flashing the amulet as if it were nothing.
They headed back to Max's place, with Bree making it abundantly clear that if he did anything unusual, she would not hesitate to beat him over the head with her bag and make a bolt for the nearest police station. Oh, and that she was carrying an alarm and pepper spray, and she had friends on speed dial that could get to his house in no less than 5 minutes. So yeah, he was rightfully spooked. He had to explain to her multiple times that 1, she was the one who approached him, and 2, he didn't even have an interest in talking about the Reapers until she flashed that amulet, let alone trying anything funny. Anyway, as soon as they got to Max's place, Celeste went into overdrive. She materialized within a second and started to examine the amulet that Bree had. At first, Bree jumped back in shock. What the hell is that? She screamed. Damn it, hopefully his neighbours didn't hear one of the first girls he ever brought back to his house scream after 2 minutes of walking through the door. Calm the hell down. He tried to keep his voice down, so at least if the neighbours did hear her scream earlier, then they might think that she was in the house by herself, even thinking she broke into the house. But then Max realised that might involve them calling the police, which is heat that he would rather not have right now. Calm down? There's a frigging ghost that just appeared from your chest. How the hell am I supposed to calm down? Her voice got progressively louder until he found himself lunging at her, putting his hand over her mouth and telling her to be quiet. Well, if the neighbours thought she was in the house by herself before, they knew now that he was there with her. Bree mumbled. Ouch, what the hell? Max jumped back and held his hand, trying to stop it from bleeding from the bite marks she had just given him. Next time, don't go putting your hands where they don't belong, and maybe I won't do that again, Bree said while slowly eyeing Celeste up and down. Celeste eventually calmed down as well once she realised Max was hurt, and she quickly grabbed his hand to try and heal it. It's not that bad, he tried telling her, but she was not paying attention. This won't take long, the mark isn't that deep, Celeste said while the healing light of her angelic powers washed over his hand, and then the mark was gone. I'm not going to apologise, but I can see that ghost thing isn't too bad, Bree said while cautiously eyeing Celeste. I am no ghost thing, I'm an angel, Celeste told Bree. Bree flashed a look of slight bewilderment and denial. Max started to explain that she is an angel from heaven, complete with her own set of wings, halo, etc, etc. Max checked over his hand to make sure that it was completely healed. I'm still unsure, but fine. Whatever. If she can help us, then I honestly don't mind what she is, Bree said while taking a seat on one of the living room chairs. Well, for an angel, she certainly has her uses. Haha, and who's this fine gothic piece of eye candy you brought here? The first girl you've ever brought back, and no one even bothered to tell me about her, Butrid exclaimed while stirring in his lantern. I'm not a gothic chick, and why the hell am I talking to a lantern? Bree did not seem too surprised to see a talking lantern, especially after meeting Celeste, but she was still wary of Butrid. Ha ha ha, I like this one. So babe, if you're ever looking to scratch that hellish itch, just give my lantern 3 rubs and I'll show you just how nice hell on earth can be. Ha ha. Butrid started stirring even more in his lantern, as if he figured out a way to physically manifest himself and put his money where his mouth is. Ha, and what exactly are you going to do? You know you're stuck in that lantern, right? Max laughed, much to Butrid's ire. I might be stuck in here, but even I'm getting more action than you, Butrid retorted. Ouch, that's a good one, but the holes in your lantern don't count as action. Max and Butrid both then burst out laughing, with Celeste looking on in utter disappointment. You know, they always do this. They make fun of each other and then laugh about it as if nothing happened. In heaven, celestial beings never act like this, so I always assume they mean what they say until they start laughing. One thing I have realised is that men can be such funny creatures, Celeste remarked to Bree. Oh, trust me, it's not just men who act like this. Girls can be just as weird and a lot more hidden about it, believe me, Bree answered back. Oh, are you someone who partakes in both men and women? Max has a female associate who conforms to a similar thing. In heaven, I was formed with the belief that such acts are villainous, to say the least. But after meeting individuals such as you and Miss Scarlet, Bree stopped Celeste short of finishing what she was about to say. Wait, who is Scarlet, and why am I and her being clumped together? Better yet, are you implying that I'm bisexual? Whether or not I am is none of your business. And if I am, well, you don't have to go shouting it to the heavens. Never mind, those are wrong choice of words. Max looked over to Bree and told her that Scarlet is an old friend of his. However, he refrained to elaborate when Bree tried to pry. Max could tell that Bree had an inkling that there was something more to him and Scarlet than just old friends, but she gave up on trying to get any more information out of him. Anyway, that amulet, let's try to figure out exactly what it is. Max then took the amulet from Bree and started surveying it. Celeste came over and had another peruse of the amulet. They both studied it as best they could, and Max even gave it to Butrid to have a look over. Eventually they concluded the amulet was called the Amulet of the Banished. Celeste recognised where she had seen the amulet. It was an amulet given by a god to banish those with a certain power. For Bree to have such an amulet can mean a multitude of things, but mainly it would mean that Bree has power through her ancestry, a power that even the gods themselves felt they had to banish. Wow, well, I don't know what type of power you're referring to. I haven't been able to do anything extraordinary to that extent, nor can my parents for that matter. However, with you being a Reaper, you must have tremendous power, so this must be common to you. Max could see where Bree's thought process was. However, only a few individuals have such power, and Max was not one of those individuals. His power was different. He was not banished, but he does have power that can rival theirs. I get where you're coming from, however my power is different, it's not linked to the banished. Well, at least not from my understanding anyway. And sadly, I'm not too sure what this power is, or why the gods banished it. All I know is that we learned a bit about them while conducting Reaper training. The banished are not to be messed with. They have immense power that if unchecked, can be deadly. Bree looked at Max as if he were insane. Wait, so what you're telling me is that I have this power? Banished power or whatever? Well, this doesn't make sense. Like I said before, I've never known to have anything like that, nor have my parents ever shown signs of having tremendous power. Bree was now checking her hands as if trying to see if there was anything new that she'd never noticed before. Not exactly, Bree. What I mean is that whoever was able to wield and utilize this amulet may have had the aforementioned power. It does not mean that whoever has the amulet now would automatically have the power. Anyone can hold or have the amulet, but to utilize it is a whole nother thing. Max passed the amulet over to Celeste, who immediately prodded Max's mind to ask a question in secret, merely asking how we can trust her, and that she is not simply hiding her power. Max replied by saying that he cannot sense any murderous or powerful intent from her, so either she's good at hiding her power, or she simply doesn't have any, or at the very least cannot access it. Max also conferred with Butrid. Butrid stirred in his lantern, which even caused Bree to look over and try to ascertain what all the commotion was about. I can't sense anything either. However, we still need to be on our guard, as there are monsters both dead and living who occupy this world. Monsters with the skill to mask their power and take unassuming forms. Max started thinking over who could have utilized the amulet before Bree came into possession of it. So does that mean that you can utilize its power then? Or what about Celeste, or that thing in the lantern? Bree exclaimed. Hey, this thing has a name, it's Butrid, learn it. Damn, you're lucky you're cute, Butrid said while sounding a bit annoyed. I'm just going to pretend I never heard that and ask again. So can anyone here utilize the power of the amulet? Bree remarked while pretending not to hear whatever else Butrid had to say. Sadly, no. I don't think any one of us can use the amulet to its full effect. But I do think I know someone who can help us to figure out this amulet problem. So does that mean that you can utilize its powers then? What about Celeste, or that thing in the lantern? Bree exclaimed. Hey, this thing has a name, it's Butrid, learn it. Damn, you're lucky you're cute, Butrid said while sounding a bit annoyed. I'm just going to pretend I never heard that and ask again. So can anyone else here utilize the power of the amulet? Bree remarked while pretending not to hear whatever else Butrid had to say. Sadly, no. I don't think any of us can utilize the amulet to its full effect, but I do think I know someone who can help us to figure out this amulet problem. Max then headed into his room to look for a contact method, one that he had not used in a while. While he was away, Bree and Celeste got into a conversation about this whole other world situation, of demons, the afterlife, etc. Celeste also explained to Bree about her unplanned trip to Earth, how her body and soul were torn apart and why she was now tethered to Max. Bree told Celeste about where she got the amulet from, that her grandmother passed it down to her a long time ago. Bree also explained that her grandmother told her stories about the amulet, about the power that it held, and stories about the ancients and the unyielding. Bree never did fully understand the stories her grandmother told her, and she put most of them down to her grandmother being senile. However, now, Bree had her reasons for believing in some of those stories. She never truly divulged those reasons,
but it seemed that Bree saw the reality of what her grandmother meant. Max found the contact method and read the name, Skaith, a powerful female warrior who had taught him how to control his power and utilize his martial combat to further himself and his powers. She was a boon to him when he left the Reapers, providing ample training so that he could keep up and even surpass his former Reaper allies. A woman who previously resided in a different universe to Max's, but after discovering a pocket universe in between two worlds, she decided to reside in the second world, watching over both worlds and training those who she deemed worthy. Contacting her was not an easy task. It was not as easy as just phoning the contact number that Max found, as it was not a number, at least not in the conventional sense. Instead, a sort of puzzle that would constantly change and adapt to ensure that no two ways could open the way to her realm. Luckily, Max was always able to solve the puzzle. Skaith told him it was because of the power that resides in him. It can bridge the gap between time and space, opening a bridge between the two previously mentioned worlds. Max never truly understood it, but the way that he saw it was once he started on the puzzle, the pieces slotted themselves in his mind, and presto, the puzzle was solved. Max brought the puzzle out to the others, and he showed it to Bree. She looked at it in bewilderment, and with good reason. The puzzle is, for all intents and purposes, a ball. It's round and the same size as a football. Due to that, it is incredibly inconspicuous, enough that you would not believe that this one ball can somehow bridge the gap between two realms. Wait, so are you supposed to somehow solve that thing? How the hell does that make any sense? It's just a ball. How are you supposed to drop it or spin it or something? Bree asked while studying the ball. Max laughed. No, see, the ball works with the mind. When you hold the ball and close your eyes and release your mind to the ball, it becomes like seeing the ball in your mind's eye. That's when the puzzle exposes itself. See, the woman who created this puzzle was very clever. She created this puzzle ensuring that only those in tune with psychic capabilities would have a chance to solve the puzzle. But that does not mean that they will solve it. See, they only have the chance to solve it. And with the puzzle changing constantly, if you fail, you must redo a whole new puzzle. That ensures that only those Skaith deemed worthy can visit her realm. Even while Max said this, he thought about the puzzle and those worthy to open it. He only knew a very small amount of people who could even interact with the puzzle, let alone open it. Those people mainly being himself and Scarlet. He also knew that higher plane beings such as Celeste and Butrid were able to interact with the puzzle. But he was always of the mind that the Banished would have the power to, if not solve it, then override it. And this thought always made him shudder, as he would think to himself, what would happen if the puzzle fell into the wrong hands? That puzzle is something else. It is on such a level that I truly believe only a godlike being could craft the puzzle, which always makes me question what Skaith is, Celeste said while studying the puzzle. As Max worked on it, the ball remained still, unchanging. His eyes were closed, and he was sitting down, holding the ball. Nothing's happening. You kind of got my hopes up as well. I was expecting some power or something to come whizzing out of it. Heck, even the cliche ball floating and laser light show would have been far more interesting than the ball doing nothing, Bree exclaimed. Yeah, if you're expecting some mad trippy show, then you're in the wrong place, hun. That ball won't move an inch. By itself, all that will happen is nothing, to begin with, and then poof, the puzzle is solved, Butrid said while mid-yawn. From this point on, Max was not sure what was said, as he became completely enthralled in the puzzle. He started seeing all the puzzle pieces coming together, fixing and moulding into a solution. Planets were aligning, the stars were moving into formation, and time in his mind became non-linear. Together, the past, the present, and the future went into a single space. That space was a pocket universe, and with that, the puzzle was solved. When you first experience solving a puzzle, your mind cannot handle what it just saw, and for good reason. It is the same as seeing everything and nothing all at the same time, past, present, future in the universe, and many other universes all collide and converge to one point. It is impossible to comprehend, yet Skaith understands it all. She explained to Max that if one was to truly understand the meaning behind the puzzle, what it represented, and more importantly, what it all meant, then one would have the questions to the universe answered. Every single question would be answered at the same time, and you would no longer be you. Max told her that to him, that is something that he cannot even try to fathom.
but she explained to him that in due course he will realise that everything that she has said, he has already come to know. With the puzzle being solved, they got through to Skaith, but of course the first to answer was Jezebel, a young girl who Max and Scarlet rescued a while ago, and who is now being trained by Skaith. They came to the belief that Jezebel may be one of the banished, but Skaith told them that she is something more. However, not even Skaith fully knows what Jezebel is, or if she does, then she is certainly not telling. Oh, hi guys, it's so good to see you all. As soon as Max saw Jezebel, he was surprised. The Pocket Universe works differently from his realm, and even our realm. Time in the Pocket Universe moves quicker than in other realms. Due to this, people cannot stay in the Pocket Universe for too long, or else they die of old age much quicker than they should have. Skaith is unaffected because she is immortal, but a month in the Pocket Universe would equal a year in Max's realm. As such, Jezebel was in the Pocket Universe for 4 months, but to her, 4 years had passed, and because of that, Max was now looking at Jezebel as a young adult. She was 17 when she went into the Pocket Universe, and now she was physically 21. Max felt like an older brother watching their sibling grow at an exponential rate and being proud of the woman that she had become in less than a year. While it had only been 4 months, it had felt like forever since Max last saw Jezebel. Ever since she was rescued by him and Scarlet, the trio became almost inseparable, until Jezebel went to train with Skaith. The overwhelming emotion of seeing her again almost made him well up, but he shrugged back the tears and spoke to Jezebel. "Hey hon, how are things? How is training going? Hopefully you're not running Miss Skaith ragged," Max told Jezebel. "She is hotter-headed than you were, but she's more skilled, if only lacking discipline," Max heard Skaith say as she came onto the line. "Hey, who are you calling hot-headed? I'm the least hot-headed person I know. I'm like cold-headed. Yeah, that's right. I'm so cold-headed that I may as well not have anything in there." "Wait, I didn't mean that," Jezebel exclaimed. Even as a kid, she was always hot-headed, shouting and getting into unnecessary conflicts all the time. But a trait that Jezebel had, which was very difficult to come across, was that she was fiercely loyal. Jezebel would always protect those that she cared about, no matter the cost. Skaith smiled at the remark that Jezebel had made. Then she turned to Max and Co on the line. "How may I assist you? Do you want passage to my realm? Or do you want Jezebel back?" Skaith asked. You see, bringing someone out of the Pocket Universe is not easy. Bringing them in is fine, but once you leave the Pocket Universe, your body, age, etc. revert to the point they would have been at had you not left. The only difference would be the knowledge, skills and experience that was gained while away, which would stay with you. So for example, Jezebel would go back to being 17, but she would have the same knowledge as when she was 21. The Pocket Universe then rejects you until your age in your realm matches the age that you were at when you left the Pocket Universe. This is how it regulates its time. Because of this, to pull Jezebel out early would be detrimental, as she would not be able to go back to train until she turned 21 in her realm. Luckily not yet, you can keep Jezebel for a bit longer, but I wanted you to explain the past of our realm, where the daemon came from, and the threat that they pose. We also wanted to ask you about a special amulet. I believe that it is linked to the Banished or maybe the Godforsaken, but I'm not entirely too sure how, Max explained. "Hey, what do you mean you can keep Jezebel? I'm not some lost puppy, you'll be glad to have me back." Max heard Jezebel shout out. Butrid and Celeste remained silent. For Butrid it was because he couldn't care less, but for Celeste it was because she and Skaith never got on. It was as if there was a sort of rift between them. It seems like Celeste knows something about Skaith, that for whatever reason she will not explain, but because of that they hardly converse with each other. They do not hate each other, nor do they really dislike each other. They just have an unspoken thing. Bree was stunned by everything that was going on. Max thought that she was going to collapse from how overwhelming the situation was, but she held her own. She was barely processing everything, but she was still processing. You wish me to explain the story of the past to this young girl?" Skaith asked, motioning to Bree. Hi, I'm but Bree." That was all that Bree was able to muster. Skaith gave a polite smile. "It is a pleasure, Bree, which is also extended to your companions, Max." Skaith's eyes flashed over Celeste, and Celeste met her gaze. "I shall explain the story of the demon, and their ties with your realm. But be ready, for this story is not a short one, and there is a lot that I must cover. Are you sure you're ready to listen?" Skaith turned to Bree and gave a polite smile. Yeah, I'm ready to hear what you have to say. I need to know about this amulet and how much of this world my grandmother knew about, Bree said with newfound determination burning in her eyes. Good, then I shall tell you all that I know. Skaither moved her hands and the line widened. The window where they were talking to Skaith and Jezebel through became wider, and images started to flutter across the window, shaping the story of their past. A long time ago, there were extremely powerful wizards and witches called the Ancients, who vied for political power. They wanted peace, and their mistake was using their powers to try and achieve it. However, this brought the wrath of the people who were already in power, calling themselves the Unyielding, and to keep their position, they ultimately unleashed a terrible evil onto the world. Using dark magic practices, they bridged the gap between your world and the world of the daemon. A hellish world of evil creatures from another dimension who feed off the torment and suffering of living beings. The creatures use this bridge to break through to your world, tormenting and killing the people of Regalion. The creatures then started to take over, manipulating the Unyielding and bolstering their conviction to stay in power. This led to the mass killings and burnings of the Ancients, with the Ancients finding it more difficult to defend themselves, expending most of their power forcing back the evil creatures, as well as protecting whenever they could. The Unyielding then used this instability to convince the public that it was the Ancients who had summoned these creatures to control the world. But unable to control these creatures, the Ancients resorted to fending them off and trying to fix their mistakes. Due to the fear and the need for a leader, the public rallied with the Unyielding and ultimately aided in the mass killings of the Ancients. However, the evil creatures, unable to be controlled, threatened to spread their corruption to the rest of the world, wanting to feast on whomever they could. The Unyielding, while not being as powerful as the Ancients, were still in tune with magical energy. They used this tie with magical energy to break the control that the daemons were now imposing, ultimately allowing them to come to their senses. Max could tell that for Skaith this must have been a horrible time. To watch and not be able to aid must have been truly torturing, with the country of Regalia most likely in disarray, allowing sin and corruption to run rampant. Sin and corruption are not that bad. The world was way too goody two-shoes back then. People needed a little spice in their life. Butrid interrupted, stirring in his lantern. Butrid, even you know that what happened back then went too far. It became less about feeding and more about genocide. Even you know that the daemon are not genocidal creatures. They are driven by hunger, not outright devastation. Skaith interjected with a somber smile. Butrid did not say anything. Instead, his lantern stopped moving, but they all knew that Skaith had hit a nerve with Butrid. Daemon are supposed to be creatures that unwittingly do the bidding of the higher-ups, but Butrid had become something else. He went against the ideology of the daemon higher-ups, and he made it his ultimate goal to kill off the higher-ups and take their position. This conflicted with why Butrid was made, still giving him food for thought every time his conflicting views were brought up. It was one of the only ways to silence a creature that feeds off sin. People were attacking, maiming, raping anyone they could. The Ancients stretched thin trying to fix the mistakes of the Unyielding. By the Unyielding breaking the control that the daemon had on them, they came to their senses long enough to begrudgingly seek the aid of the remaining Ancients. And what one could not do alone, together they could seal away the creatures, forcing most of them back to their world, with the only exception being the weaker daemon that managed to slip through the cracks. The creatures forcing themselves to push out to the rest of the world before they were sealed away, could manifest themselves physically and mentally, tormenting their hosts and twisting their mental state. However, this rocky alliance did not last long. The Unyielding eventually turned on the Ancients again, killing them and claiming that the Unyielding were the ones who banded together to stop the creatures. A few Ancients escaped and set up roots in other parts of the world. This is essentially the story of your world's past. One thing to remember is that the seal was never perfect, foretelling a day when the seal will be broken, and individuals who harbour the power of the Ancients must rise and finish the seal. Skaith then closed her eyes as if in deep thought, reflecting on the history lesson she just gave them. Max had heard this story numerous times, but he had always felt that something was missing, that Skaith was holding out, but he never pondered on it enough to bring it up. It seemed difficult enough just recounting and reliving the story. Wait, but would the descendants of the unyielding be needed? Because the unyielding sound like disgusting individuals. And luckily, I know this girl, not gonna name any names, but just know that she's a complete bit. Before Bree could finish, Skaith politely interjected, stating that the descendants of the ancients, known as the Godforsaken, are powerful enough that they may be able to perfect the daemon seal on their own. Also, the unyielding compared to the ancients were not powerful enough to seal away the daemon. Okay, so what about the Reapers? What the hell are you guys? I know as much as anyone else that you hunt down daemon and can banish them, but this involves huge amounts of power? Bree asked while looking over at Max, as if trying to figure out an answer to her question just by looking at him. As time went on, the unyielding started to train some individuals, and named them Reapers. They trained them to hunt down the creatures that were still wandering our world, also bestowing them with small abilities used to break into the minds of the afflicted and force the creatures out, Skaith explained to Bree. Max used this opportunity to interject and explain. Reapers are mainly ruthless killers, who would hunt and kill without prejudice, and sometimes kill the host if it means that they can destroy the creature within. In the Reaper faction, 7 elite Reapers are highly trained, supremely powerful Reapers. They were created for the main purpose of being able to rival the supreme Alpha Daemon. However, not much else is known about them. They are highly secretive and fiercely loyal to the ones they work for. They are also incredibly dangerous, not hesitating to kill if it means that the daemon they are hunting is eradicated. All Reapers live by this code, where eliminating the daemon comes first, but for the 7, they will kill indiscriminately, whether innocent or not, if they have an inkling that the individual is associated with the daemon. Max had gotten a little heated, but his stance on the Reapers was strong. He thought about how it was easy to look on the outside and for someone to make up their idea of what the Reapers are, but being a Reaper opened his eyes to just how cruel they can be to complete a job. And yet the Reapers seemed tame to the beings he met later. As for the amulet, I believe you are correct in your assessment that it is an amulet of the banished. However, without being able to physically see the amulet, I would not be able to give you a proper assessment. I can say that the amulet seems very important, and finding the amulet may place a target on your head, meaning you will have to be very careful or guarded, if possible, Skaith added. Guarded? So does that mean that we will most likely have to keep Bree safe? Max asked. Yes, she is important to the future events that will unfold. I cannot tell how she is important, but just know that it is key that she remains alive. If nothing, to find out the secrets of the amulet and its power, Skaith said. I didn't want to bring this up, but I understand the danger I'm in. One of the reasons why I came to find you was because I was attacked. At least I think, anyway. It felt like a dream, but now I know all this and more about the daemon. I think I may have been attacked by a daemon. A being appeared in my room recently, and they went for my grandmother's amulet. They were shrouded in some type of dark mist, so I could not fully make them out. But as they went for the amulet, I felt a surge of emotion screaming at me to not let them take it. I screamed, or at least a scream escaped my mouth, and I lunged for the amulet. It then shone and a bright light pushed the being back, giving me time to grab the amulet. I thought it was going to be burning hot from what it did, but it felt right in my hands. I held up the amulet at the being, which backed away from it, now until it finally disappeared. While this only happened a few weeks ago, it prompted me to see if I could find anything in my grandmother's notes as to what I saw, as it felt like a dream, but it also felt so real. That was when I learnt who you were. I made my journey to find you, Bree explained. While she was able to explain her story, it was visible that she was shaken up by the experience. I'm sorry that you had to go through that, Max said, with Skaith explaining that the being does fit the bill of a daemon. It's okay, what's done is done. All I can do is look forward and work alongside you to unravel these mysteries. So if the Reapers are that bad, and we could hypothetically be going up against them, then don't I need training or a weapon at least? I mean, I'm the one who came to you, but that doesn't mean I want to die due to this. Bree asked, looking at everyone as if they could channel years worth of training in a split second. It might not be that bad, yet I think you're getting ahead of yourself, Bree. We can't simply take you with us, as we could be putting your life in danger. It would make sense for us to take the amulet and try to find out how to unlock its power, Max replied. While that would be a logical conclusion, I would advise you to take Bree with you. You need to keep her protected, and she's more capable than you may believe. As she explained, She already has had a run-in with the nefarious individuals, and she was able to escape with her life and find you. She is capable enough to journey with you, and her proximity with the amulet and the power of the world may assist in unlocking the secrets of the amulet and her power. Skaith explained. She was oddly serious, almost demanding that Max take Bree with him. Whilst Bree was attacked, and most likely with the type of attack it could be connected to the amulet, he was still unsure as to the feasibility of having Bree with them. But if Skaith was advising it, then he could try for a bit, if nothing else, to ensure that he could protect Bree. We don't have time. Even if you went to Skaith's realm, you may not have time to learn much of anything. And if Skaith believes that you are important, then we may need you. We can't take the risk of not having you with us. I'll do everything in my power to protect you, even if it means laying down my life for you. Max explained with a look of determination and concern. This caused Bree to blush a bit, but she quickly composed herself. Skaith then smiled, before answering, "Don't count yourself out just yet, little one. Your time will come, and until then I believe Max has a weapon you may be able to use." Skaith replied, "Oh yeah, but I don't have it on me. We're going to have to go and retrieve it when we get the chance," Max responded. Skaith looked over at Max and smiled, nodding her head in acknowledgement of what he had just said, adding, "The Reapers were created by a shadow group in the government, a group that still believes in the ancient teachings of the Unyielding. By the time the populace found out about them, it was too late, and the Reapers were already deployed. There was another reason why the Reapers were created, however. This reason is fully held under lock and key. Not even I can gather the information as to the true reason why the Reapers were made." Skaith explained, seeming almost sad at the thought of not knowing why the Reapers were created. For a split second, Max saw Skaith look over at him, and he saw genuine sadness in her eyes. Bree then interjected, "Alright then, so what I'm getting from this is that this amulet holds power, and the other people who have immense power, aside from the people I've met, are godforsaken. So, do we find them and see if they can activate it?" Bree asked while inspecting her amulet. It almost seemed that Bree was no longer freaking out over everything that was going on. "That amulet, I believe it is truly meant for you. I will send Jezebel back, as I believe that the amulet is meant for the both of you. Again, I am unsure as to why I feel this way, but I know that Bree and Jezebel are linked, and that amulet holds the key." Skaith then looked over Bree and the amulet before leaving to find Jezebel, and they all sat there, stunned. Max was confused. Skaith never gets involved in stuff like this. She would just give guidance, but to actively get involved by giving Jezebel back, and drop in the revelation that Bree may have power, and that power could be linked to Jezebel. It must be serious to have Skaith this riled up. Celeste seemed to be pondering a few things as she had gone back into Max's body, and he could feel her mind tinkering away. Richard was still asleep, his snores loud enough for the neighbours to hear. Max felt like covering his lantern with a blanket just because his snoring was incredibly annoying, a true assault on the ears. Eventually, they came back, and of course, Jezebel jumped onto the call first. "Ha! So now you guys want me back, huh? And who says I'm even coming back? I might just stay here and keep training," Jezebel said with a smug look on her face. It was weird, and it took Max a while to come to terms with the idea that Jezebel is essentially a 17-year-old in a 21-year-old body. "Well, I mean, we could have liked it if you stayed there with Skaith. We were doing perfectly fine without you, but it seems Skaith wants you gone," Max retorted. Skaith gave a little chuckle, and it was one of those only times that Max had ever seen her laugh, and gave him a weird, warm feeling inside. "Hey, Skaith loves me, and she would want me here forever if she could. So there is no point in hiding it. I know that you guys want me back. There is no need to admit it. I'll come back, or else you guys go crazy without me," Jezebel said sarcastically. "Then I shall send her back to you. I am sure that she will be happy to return. And Jezebel, remember, you will not be able to come back until you turn 21 in your own realm," Skaith said while collecting Jezebel's things. The call followed them, detailing the process of Jezebel leaving. Max felt saddened as Jezebel said her goodbyes to Skaith, but he knew that they would need her. It brought back memories of when he trained under Skaith, and when he had to leave the pocket dimension. The pocket dimension was always an interesting place. It was so cool how different it was from the world they lived in. Max truly became engrossed in the place, trying to find out more about it. But every time he asked Skaith, she would always turn somber. It was as if remembering a better time. Then she would either change the subject, or tell him that some things are better left unsaid. Max knew that there was more to the Pocket universe. Enough so that it did not completely feel alien to him. and because of this, he wanted to find out as much as he could about that realm. But his only source of information was not willing to share. Wait, so are you saying that when that girl leaves, whatever place she's in, she'll come back to our world and appear younger? That sounds a little far-fetched to me, in fact. That sounds insane. I mean, she looks like a 21-year-old girl. How's she going to go from being 21 to being younger? But then again, that's not the weirdest thing I've heard today. Bree said, realizing that asking such a question would only bring about an answer that she most likely would not understand. Eventually, Skaith opened the exit to her realm, and a doorway of beautiful, dazzling light appeared with symbols and signs aligned around the edge, adding to the ever-present beauty. Skaith's realm was of such beauty and wonder that to believe such a place exists is almost impossible. It was a true Garden of Eden, complete with weird and wonderful flora, many of which had never been seen in any other realms. Waterfalls that go in every direction, with incredible and unimaginable fauna, which raised more questions than answers. Jezebel gave one last hug to Skaith and waved goodbye before stepping through the exit and appearing back in Max's realm, looking like she had never left. However, she did not appear with Max and the others. In fact, where she appeared would become known to them as time went on.
We need to get moving quickly now. They're coming through here. Hide. Don't move. We can't take them all. It seems somehow they have traced you to me, and by doing so they have backed us against the corner. What are you going to do here anyway? This place is not safe. Did Skaith bring you here? Scarlet conversed with an old face who had just appeared before her at the worst possible time. I'm sorry, I was supposed to appear with Max and the others, but it seems something interfered with Skaith's portal and instead forced me here, Jezebel responded while trying to keep hidden. Damn, well, I guess 2 heads are better than 1, but of all the times for you to appear, Scarlet exclaimed while looking around to make sure that their hiding place was not compromised. What the hell is going on here anyway? Why is there so many daemon around? Jezebel peeked over their hiding place and saw a very grotesque sight. Dark shadowy beings all contorting and moving in a weird format, as if they were possessed, cranking their heads in every direction, screaming and shouting, making horrible noises. Some were on 2 feet while others were on all 4s, with some even having 3 legs. They were disgustingly vile creatures, completely corrupt people that had become true monsters. Their ear-piercing screams sounded as if the creatures were in agony at what they had become, but also as if they were angry about not being anything else. The daemon had a distinct smell of decay, strong enough to drive a person mad if they lingered in the smell long enough. Jezebel always wondered what it felt like to be completely corrupt by a daemon. She had asked Skaith before, and Skaith had explained that from her understanding, it was like having a voice in your head that got progressively louder the more you gave into it, until eventually the voice was the only thing you could hear, and then you feel yourself growing weak, as if you are not in control of your own body anymore, the voice seemingly taking over. That's when it happens. Your soul is slowly drained from you, with you being too weak to fight against it, to pull yourself back. Eventually the host isn't dead, or they become dead inside. But this is different in that the individual is no longer there. Their body becomes a hollow husk of its former self, which the daemon then takes over, and using this body, the daemon can then infiltrate and feast on the person, growing in power until it is put down. When Skaith told Jezebel this, she thought to herself that if anything, it sounds sad, like giving up and no longer believing in yourself, to the point where even your soul is not worth fighting for. At some point, Jezebel told Max what Skaith had said, and while doing so, she started crying. At first, Max thought that maybe Skaith had gone too far, because Jezebel was young, but then he realised why Skaith had told her this. Skaith realised that Jezebel had lived such a life that she was no longer a child. Jezebel was forced to grow up, and to treat her like a child now would confuse her. Instead, what Skaith was getting at is that they needed to teach Jezebel that she can still be mature about life. That she might not be able to completely live the life of a child, but she can still relate to them while still being mature. To ensure that Jezebel can remain emotionally, physically, and mentally mature. Max realised that Jezebel was crying not because she was afraid of what she heard, but because she was sad about what happens to people when they become daemon. She was sad that an individual's spirit is broken in such a way that they cannot even fight anymore. And she related to it herself, that when she was younger, she could have easily been corrupted by a daemon. Through the life that she was living, she had many moments when she wanted to give up. And in fact, She did feel that she'd given up before Max and Scarlet found her. When they found her, she was dead inside, and Max and Scarlet could see that, but they could also see that she still had a fire in her, however small, and that there was something different to her, almost as if it was forcing her not to stop fighting, enough so that they could take her under their wing. After they helped all the other children who had been kidnapped, they realised that Jezebel was still there. She felt a connection with them, as much as they did with her. Even then, Max started to realise Jezebel's power, but they just didn't know it yet. That's why Max believes that a daemon would not, or better yet, could not take over Jezebel, because that power would always keep them at bay. We need to be extra careful. We have already alerted the daemon to our presence with your less stellar entry, and for your information, I'm looking for a weapon called the Staff of Creation. A weapon that I know harbours great power enough to attract both daemon and reapers, as such ensuring that the only safe place for the staff will be with us. Scarlet whispered while running through potential plans in her head. Look, I'm sorry, okay, it wasn't my fault. As to how I ended up here, I just did. And anyway, it can't be that bad, surely. Scarlet then looked over at Jezebel with an unwavering stare and explained, it's not the daemon lackeys that we have to worry about. It's a supreme alpha daemon who's leading the small fry, as well as, wait for it, the reapers with 2 high-ranking reapers leading them into the facility as well. As such, the situation is far worse than you can even imagine. Scarlet always had a way with words, Jezebel thought. She always knew how to make every situation seem like a life and death scenario with always pointing to death. Are Supreme Alpha Daemon really that deadly? I mean, I've been training for the equivalent of 4 years, and I know that the Supreme Alphas are dangerous, but they can't be that bad, Jezebel explained while composing herself. They are worse than that, Jez. The Supreme Alphas are deadly creatures, able to command an army of daemons, alter their size whatever they please, and have immense power that leveling a skyscraper would seem like child's play. Each Supreme Alpha Daemon bolsters a huge array of otherworldly magic. And finally, each Supreme Alpha is separated by having a unique power that the others do not have. As such, they are intensely powerful. For us to come out of this alive, we need to think up of a plan. Give me a minute and I'll think of something. You look out there while I try and figure out a way through this. Jezebel looked over again and watched the daemon, studying the way they acted and moved, and that's when she came up with a plan. Scarlet, I have a plan. Our main goal here is a Staff of Creation, right? And making sure that it does not fall into the hands of the Reapers or the daemon. I've been watching the daemon and I realised that they have a herd-like mentality. Jezebel started to explain. Yeah, but that's something that we already knew. Daemon are not the cleverest creatures, so what kind of plan do you have? Scarlet replied. If you let me finish, then maybe you'll hear the plan. So as I was saying, herd-like mentality. Now if we can outrun them, we can draw the others to us. Then one of us could distract them and even cause a commotion while the other person sneaks further into the facility and grabs the staff. Jezebel finished explaining her plan, seeming pleased with herself for being able to think up such a foolproof plan. Okay, but what happens after, when the staff is grabbed? Because then we will most definitely have everyone on our asses, Scarlet replied. And what happens if the plan doesn't go well? Then we end up separated with one of us cornered by daemon and possibly reapers, and the other in an even worse jam. And that would be the best case scenario, Scarlet added. Jezebel thought on this and weighed up their current predicament, taking into account the daemon that was ready to advance and kill her and Scarlet. She decided to go with her gut feeling, telling Scarlet, we are already in a very bad situation, completely cornered and cut off. There is no way for us to get past the daemon or the reapers without alerting them. So either we go home, or we try. At least if we can draw the daemon away, it might give us a fighting chance. And if worse comes to worse, we draw the daemon into a confrontation with the reapers. That way hopefully we are not dealing with both groups alone. And if that doesn't work, well then, I guess there are worse ways to go. Like, if you give me a minute, I'll think of something. Jezebel then went into thought, actively trying to think of a death worse than daemon possession. Well, I can't think of anything better, so fine. I will draw the daemon attention away, and then you sneak in and find the Staff of Creation, Scarlet replied. Wait, what? But that's incredibly dangerous. I'm the one who thought for the plan, so shouldn't I be the one to put my neck on the line? Besides, what happens if I meet resistance? I'm not as skilled as you are, and I might be forced to fall back, Jezebel exclaimed.
which is why I decided to provide a distraction. I can fend off the daemon enough that they won't have a chance to possess me. I don't know how much you've grown in skill, but I'd rather face the risk of fighting the daemon, as you have a better chance of sneaking in and stealing the staff." As Scarlet said this, she got up and started the plan of distraction before Jezebel had any time to retort. Wait! But it was too late. Scarlet jumped out of their hiding spot, flinging 2 throwing knives in the direction of the daemon, hitting 2 of them square in the head, causing them to scream out in ear-piercing agony and then drop to the floor as lifeless husks, while dark spirit energy oozed out of every orifice. Jezebel looked in utter bewilderment and disgust before steeling herself when she heard Scarlet shout, "Run! Now!" Jezebel then made a break for it, out of her hiding place, ensuring not to draw attention to herself. She traversed further into the facility, but not before dispatching 2 daemon stragglers who had uncharacteristically stayed behind. As Jezebel went deeper into the facility, she could hear the voices of the 2 Reaper leaders from earlier, shouting as though they were in combat with something powerful enough to take on 2 core Reapers. She decided that getting involved would be a terrible idea, instead deciding to sneak in so that she could get as close as possible, allowing her to assess the situation. She started to sneak her way around, making sure not to draw any attention to herself. The air was thick with tension, and Jezebel knew that one wrong move would mean death, plain and simple. As she closed in on what seemed like an exit to a deeper part of the facility, she surmised that the fighting must have been coming from there. Jezebel was scared. She could feel the sweat running down the back of her neck. The cold chill of the sweat sent shivers down her spine, and her mouth was as dry as the most deserted of deserts, with the sound of conflict and immediate death edging ever closer with each step she took. But she knew that this was where it had to be. The staff had to be further in, there was no doubt about it. She just needed to keep herself steeled and move further and further in. Drip! She stopped suddenly, believing the sound to be a daemon that had sensed her presence. But as she slowly looked down, she noticed that it was a sweat bead that had precariously found its way to the ground underneath her. She breathed a silent but much needed sigh of relief and moved ever further in while wiping her brow, wondering how Scarlet was doing, and not allowing herself to believe that Scarlet had come into danger. Finally, Jezebel reached the much coveted but exceptionally dangerous inner chamber of the facility, and there she saw 2 extremely powerful Reapers duking it out with a daemon, or a creature that seemed like a daemon. This daemon was huge, bigger than any she had ever seen before. To compare it to the size of a building would be an understatement. She couldn't fathom how the creature was able to even get into the facility in the first place. But she knew that she did not have time to ponder on those thoughts. A feature that surprised even Jezebel was that the daemon did not carry the same rancid stench as the others. It did not seem to emit much of an odour at all. The daemon stood at least 20 feet tall, completely clad in a dark mist aura, almost as if it was not completely there. From what Jezebel could see, the daemon had 2 legs and 2 arms. However, spikes protruded from every part of its body, as ever present as the hair on a human. With claws almost as big as her and razor-sharp teeth powerful enough to shred even cars with ease. Jezebel tried to figure out a solution, and as she did, her gaze slid up to the daemon's face, and she jumped back with fear. For whatever reason, its face just instilled complete fear into her. She panicked, wondering if it saw her, but she could hear the battle raging on. The daemon's eyes glowed red, seemingly able to pierce the very core of your soul, and its mouth was forever a smirk, almost as if it knew it was holding something back. Jezebel's mind started to run thoughts of the daemon having some hidden, unimaginable power that could end everyone in the facility within an instant. She quickly dismissed the idea and decided to take one more peek at who the daemon was fighting. That was when she saw 2 powerful Reapers. One stayed back, using what seemed to be a custom-made rifle. She shot with deadly accuracy, every shot penetrating the daemon's mist armor and damaging its core. This unknown sniper wore a shawl that covered most of her body with skin-tight trousers and heavy shoes, while also clad on top of her more vital spots were pieces of metallic armor. She also wore heavy-duty goggles, which Jezebel surmised were most likely goggles built to help her with her aim.
as well as a hat that seemed to be for protection, as it seemed more like a redesigned hard hat. Jezebel took an interest in this girl, deciding that if she wasn't such a bad guy, she would try her luck. She also glanced over at the other girl, a more upfront and personal fighter. The girl used chakrams to attack the daemon, bobbing and weaving through its attacks and catching her own thrown weapons with ease. This girl seemed more battle-hardened. She wore what seemed to be a full metal armor that was redesigned to be lighter, allowing her to be as agile as possible. This girl had scars that ran down her face, giving her a more veteran look. Without wearing a helmet or any protective eyewear, Jezebel could guess how she got those scars. This girl unnerved Jezebel. While the other girl seemed scary due to her almost statue-like position, the second girl was more excited by the prospect of this battle. Every time she landed a hit, she would smirk with glee and rush straight in to get some more, clearly enjoying the prospect of ripping the daemon to shreds. Jezebel guessed that the second girl would not care much for excuses if she was to be found, and most likely she would either be killed by the daemon or by the Reapers. She watched in awe as the battle ensued. The girl in the back was firing at blind spots in the daemon, moving around to find better vantage points, when the daemon disturbed her spot. The daemon swung its arms in a ballistic fashion, moving with such speed and accuracy that Jezebel knew one swing from that thing, and she wouldn't even have time to think, let alone avoid the attack. The facility shook with the results of the battle. Walls and pieces of the roof lay shattered on the ground. The close quarters fighter moved with such determination that Jezebel thought one swing from her chakrams would be enough to fell even the sturdiest of trees. Weaving in and out of the creature's attacks, like a fox weaving in and out of its burrows. Jezebel snapped out of her fascination/fear and decided to persevere and move ever further into the facility. Whiz! A wayward shock came zooming past Jezebel's face and shattered the wall behind her. Jezebel froze in disbelief at the power of the bullet. She needed to devise a plan to somehow figure out how to get past the battle without losing a limb. The old saying break a leg seemed more like a wishful dream now. Then she heard it, the sound of what seemed like an army charging towards her position, with increasing speed heading straight for the middle of the battle. With a crash, Scarlet came charging into the area where the battle was going on, followed by the demonic horde Scarlet had drawn attention from. Jezebel let out a very quiet meep as she looked in bewilderment at how many daemon followed Scarlet. As soon as they saw their demonic leader in a heated battle, the daemon's attention turned from Scarlet, and they charged forward to face the two Reapers. The Supreme Alpha Daemon did not seem to react at what had happened, and neither did the girl with the chakrams. However, the other girl noticed that the demonic horde had arrived and quickly pulled out a strange device. Jezebel noticed that it seemed to emit a low-pitched noise when the button was pressed. The demonic horde seemed to respond to the sound, as they all stopped moving for a bit, almost as if they were in a trance. This was until the Supreme Alpha Daemon let out a mighty roar that seemed to shatter the hypnosis that the daemon were under, but not before giving enough time for the Reaper Corps to arrive on the scene. Scarlet had already used the commotion to make a timely exit before the Reaper Corps arrived. Jezebel used this opportunity to quickly find Scarlet, asking, "What the hell happened? Weren't you supposed to be distracting them?" Scarlet and Jezebel quickly and quietly started to make their way to the section that Jezebel had found earlier, which seemed to lead deeper into the facility. I was in the process of losing them before I heard from the Reapers about some battle that was happening further in the facility. I kinda guessed that you'd headed in that direction, and then I noticed the Reapers start to mobilize in the same direction, where the alleged battle was taking place. This was when the daemon found my hiding spot, and I decided to put two and two together and get the daemon to follow me all the way here, with the hope that the daemon would turn on the Reapers, and the Reapers would turn on them. Luckily they did, or else I don't know what would have happened to me. Scarlet said with a look that gave Jezebel a chill down her spine, because she knew that Scarlet would have faced both the daemon and the Reapers on her own if backed into a corner, and she would have enjoyed the fight. Well damn, you don't let up, do you? Any sane person would have been too afraid to even come up with a plan, yet you straight up caused two very dangerous worlds to collide, Jezebel said while watching the carnage unfold. Scarlet gave a smirk, and seemed mesmerized by the destruction unfolding. Jezebel looked over at Scarlet and thought she was always someone who would not hold back, going in guns blazing no matter the situation, and Jezebel admired that about her. This is truly intense,
I haven't seen a battle this amazing in a long time. Do you think we should join in? Scarlet said while truly enthralled by the fight. Jezebel knew that she wasn't joking when she asked the question, but she also knew how much of a bad idea it would be to just jump into a fight they would most likely die from. And she also knew the reason why Scarlet was always so interested in battles. Scarlet was always assessing every situation, always thinking 10 steps ahead of everyone in the room. She'd always have an idea of what to do, how to do it, and the outcome that would come about from being successful. Scarlet especially enjoyed watching bouts between seemingly powerful individuals, assessing their moves, their styles of combat, their tactics and strategies that they employ, and of course, the power level that they possess. In all seriousness, I know that you're thinking that there is no way that we can fight and come out of this situation alive. But when it comes down to it, I'm going to need you to trust me. We'll have to fight if we want to get out of here alive, with or without the staff. The conflict that is going on now is too big for us to avoid, even if the enemy does not know who we are. I started to formulate a plan for if things get bad, so trust the direction I give you in the coming fight. Scarlet looked far more serious now. The smirk had left her face, and she was now analysing the enemy. Her green eyes almost moving computer-like, darting from area to area, watching intensely the dance of death that was taking place between both parties. The Reapers were fending off the Daemon, trying their hardest to push them back. There'd already been many casualties, too many to count. Jezebel saw a Reaper slice through a Daemon, and then almost get killed by another, before a comrade came in with an axe and hit the Daemon with such force that it knocked it far back. The first Reaper then, using his sword, plunged it straight into the chest of the Daemon, only to then turn around and see his comrade getting buried by Daemon trying frantically to fend them off to no avail. The first Reaper with intense anger charged at the Daemon, who were now disgustingly feasting on the axe-wielding comrade. The sword-wielding Reaper charged the Daemon and managed to cut his way through two of them, before slicing them like butter. Under their helmet, Jezebel saw what looked like tears. Jezebel wanted to call out and tell them to watch out, but it was too late. A Daemon claw went straight through the Reaper's chest. The Reaper, still fueled with anger, swung back and sliced the Daemon's head off, only for two more Daemon to appear and cut off the Reaper's legs, before proceeding to violently rip him apart, organs and guts flying everywhere. Jezebel turned in disgust and tried not to throw up. She had seen tough times and disturbing things, but nothing could compare to seeing a person ripped apart before your eyes, like a piece of meat thrown out to the dogs. "We need to move," Scarlet said. She then got up and carried on further into the facility, avoiding the confrontation that was taking place. Jezebel was finally able to tear herself away from the bloody battle, and she followed Scarlet further in. After a while of wandering, they found a section of the facility that seemed like it would have been a place where staff with immense power would have been harboured. Jezebel noticed something as they wandered down the corridor to the chamber of the staff. The facility was barren of human life. Other than the Reapers, there were no humans in the facility. No scientists, no employees, no nothing. The facility looked like it had been in use before, as even this area seemed like it had people working there recently. However, for whatever reason, it seemed like they had to drop everything and try to escape. Scarlet glanced over at Jezebel and realised what she was thinking. "They are all Daemon now," Scarlet said while looking over at the mess that had taken place after everyone disappeared. Jezebel nodded. She did not have anything to say. The situation spoke for itself. They came to the end of the corridor and found a room. Scarlet was on alert the whole time while Jezebel surveyed the area. That's when they saw it. Hanging from the roof, the staff seemed completely out of place, but they did not have time to ponder on why the staff was where it was. Scarlet threw out a dagger, which cut through the arm of the machine that was holding the staff. She then jumped up and caught the staff before heading back to Jezebel. "Here, I need to scan the staff to make sure it's the right one." Jezebel took the staff and Scarlet pulled out a device that then proceeded to light up and emit a faint green glow while she moved it along the staff, making sure to cover each area with the weird glow. "Check. It seems we found the staff. I guess the easy part is done, and now it comes the hard part," Scarlet said while putting the device away. "And by the hard part, you mean we now need to fight our way through the chaotic battle that's taking place?" Jezebel said with a look on her face that summed up the whole situation. "Yep," Scarlet replied while attaching the staff to a harness on her back, and then heading for the corridor from which they came through. "We're going to have to be on high alert now, more so than ever before. We don't know how the battle has proceeded. and whether any one side was able to slip through to find the staff. We do not want to alert either party to our continued presence, so we need to be extra careful. Scarlet crouched down and started to slowly creep forward, keeping her presence as silent as a shadow. Jezebel kept low, keeping to her training. She focused her mind and her senses, watching for even the slightest movement, while keeping her movements as subtle and quiet as possible. After a little while of walking, Scarlet stopped abruptly, and Jezebel noticed something that sent a chill down her spine. The sound of the battle had grown, but not just from more fighting. No, there was something else. Scarlet had already pinpointed what it was, but to ensure Jezebel knew the severity of the situation, she let her realize it herself. Scarlet, that Damon, it's gone into some kind of hyperdrive mode, hasn't it? Jezebel whispered, her body shivering from the fear of that realization. Jez, like I said, follow my lead. This doesn't change anything. That creature has just shown its true colors, which means we are going to have a much harder fight on our hands, but the plan remains the same, Scarlet said while starting to move slowly towards the battlefield. Jezebel had to steel her fear and force herself to be courageous, to give herself a chance at surviving. As they approached the battlefield, Jezebel could see it. Nearly both sides had been wiped out. From what seemed like a war between two armies had now trickled down to nothing more than a handful of people. However, that was only the beginning of their nightmare. Jezebel looked up at the daemon and saw how the creature changed. What was once a shadowy beast of a creature seemingly ripped out of the bowels of hell was now a creature that exuberated complete and utter fear just by its presence. Jezebel could not make out what she was seeing anymore. Every time she looked at the creature, she felt a wash of nightmare fuel seep into her pores. Here. Scarlet held out a pair of goggles. Jezebel looked at them and then looked at Scarlet, a little confused. I surmised that this place would attract the attention of a supreme alpha daemon, so I decided to bring my old Reaper gear. Luckily, I had a spare. Jezebel wanted to ask why she had a spare, but she could tell that this was not the time to be asking such questions. Scarlet put on the goggles and Jezebel followed suit. With the goggles on, Jezebel's mind seemed to clear up. She remembered seeing Max's old Reaper gear and trying out a few of them. Most of them centered around counteractive measures on demonic power, such as these goggles, which ran powerful jamming signals to the brain that blocked out the effects of demonic power. As the two girls got ready to make their timely exit, an alarm went off, triggered by the taking of the staff. This alerted the Alpha as well as the two Reaper girls, as the blaring of the alarm vibrated throughout the facility. The two warring parties carried out their assault on each other, but Scarlet knew that their only way out was to fight. Jezebel, we have no other option. If we want to escape alive, then we will have to fight our way through. I know that it will be impossible for us to fully take on both an Alpha and two high-ranking Reapers, so we need to use the commotion as cover. Scarlet started to then head into the fray, and Jezebel followed behind, knowing that any slip-up would mean certain death. Scarlet made a beeline for the Alpha, jumping on its back, slicing deep into it and causing it to start flailing in anger. Jezebel used this to head in and dispatch a few daemon on the ground, now drawing attention from the two Reapers. A shot whizzed past her, but Jezebel was able to dodge the brunt of the shot, with it only scraping past her arm. She didn't have time to wince or allow herself to react to the pain. She looked up at the gun-toting Reaper, who was aligning the next shot, but who also seemed distracted, signaling to the other Reaper that a retreat would be in order. Jezebel used this slight distraction to head straight to Scarlet and the Alpha. Scarlet noticed Jezebel, and almost like clockwork, she sliced down the Alpha's back, weaving herself towards its arm. The Alpha, now enraged, let out an ear-splitting roar that caused the walls to shake and a pillar to crumble. As if awakened, spikes then started to protrude from the Alpha's body. Scarlet anticipated this, but not at the speed at which the spikes came out. She was able to dodge one of the spikes, but not before it scratched her leg, almost lodging itself into her. Scarlet winced but brushed off the pain, not allowing herself to lose momentum. Boom! Another shot came whizzing towards Jezebel, but she was able to use the daemon's arm as cover. The other Reaper became enraged and charged at Jezebel with blinding speed, annoying the gun-toting Reaper as she was now blocking her shot. Scarlet then used this opportunity to save Jezebel. The Alpha swung at Scarlet with a giant arm, but Scarlet was able to dodge its attack, after just barely landing on its arm and having to jump again. However, Scarlet used momentum from the daemon's attack to shoot herself straight at Jezebel and the Reaper. The gun-toting Reaper noticed this and made another shot, this time aimed at Scarlet. Jezebel quickly grabbed her goggles and without hesitation threw them straight at the spot in between Scarlet and the bullet. The bullet shattered the goggles, but this was only able to slow down its speed, if only by a split second, just missing Scarlet's chest and instead smashing straight into her arm, piercing through and coming out the other end. Through adrenaline and determination, Scarlet grabbed the dagger and threw it straight at the Melee Reaper's new location. This threw the Melee Reaper off for a second, had to divert her attention for a moment and block the attack. The gun-toting Reaper started to prepare another attack, shouting at the other Reaper to fall back. This is a fight they can't win. Jezebel was able to use this moment of slight confusion to jump at Scarlet, grabbing her in the air and blocking the Melee Reaper's attack. Before the gun-toting Reaper could let off another bullet, the now enraged Alpha started firing off consecutive punches at her location, causing her to start moving wildly to dodge each attack. The Melee Reaper then turned her attention towards the gun-toting Reaper and the Alpha, exclaiming, "Reapers never surrender, nor do we leave a comrade behind," while rushing in to aid the gun-toting Reaper. Jezebel and Scarlet used this opportunity to escape, and Jezebel was able to carry Scarlet out of the facility, dispatching more daemon along the way. "How am I not corrupted by the Alpha?" Jezebel exclaimed. Through panting breath and wheezing, Scarlet replied, "Because the Alpha was distracted, so it couldn't completely target you. Also, you've learnt a few protection techniques. From me and Max. It's not a lot, but it's enough to save you if used at the right time. And your mind was not clouded. You were focused. Focused on me and getting us out. Because of that, the Reaper had no leeway. No wriggle room to corrupt you." Scarlet then coughed a few times before whispering that she was passing out. Jezebel wasn't too worried, as she knew thanks to Scarlet's training as a Reaper, she had an enhanced healing factor. But even still, they'll both need medical attention soon. They were able to just barely make it out with the deafening roar of the enraged daemon and the clash of a fierce battle breaking the silence of the night.
Thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that compilation. For those who are still drifting off to sleep, I hope you sleep well. And for those of you who are awake, busy doing whatever you may be doing, I hope you're enjoying yourselves too. Come back whenever you want to get lost in the world of Regalion again. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And as always, I hope the story has brought you some level of comfort. I wish you safe travels on the journey of life, and feel free to come back again whenever you need a new story to warm your day.